And at this point, I'm going to also invite to the panel Bhav Dhillon. And Bhav is the Honorary Consul of India, based in Auckland. As I said earlier, an industrialist in his own right. He is very well connected and embedded in the India-New Zealand community generally, and business community specifically. He is the managing director of CEMEX, a construction products manufacturer. He lives and breathes business both in New Zealand and will, I think, give us some very, very helpful insights on that budget. I'm also going to invite Jay Changlani, the INZBC Treasurer, and Jay is also very, very active in the Indian-New Zealand business community. He's feeling the pulse regularly on the interaction between New Zealand and India in terms of overall business conditions. And I think the four of you now provide our audience with an opportunity to drill a little bit deeper into specific areas of interest. So, Gary, if we're all set up, I'm going to ask, first of all, Bhav, if he could just give us a couple of sentences of introduction of observations of the budget and comment on our speakers so far.
Yes, thank you, Earl, and acknowledging the High Commissioner, His Excellency Muktesh Pardeshi, and all the officials from Invest India and all the members of INZBC. Was quite refreshing to listen to the speakers, especially Srivastava, our High Commissioner, and Himanshu. Of course, my take on the budget very quickly is that it's a very forward-looking and futuristic budget, and very focused on the key issue which we are talking about today, which is investments into India. And that, to me, any cross-border investment is always done on a long-term basis. And for long-term basis, the biggest investment in a country can be done in infrastructure. And I see the focus of this budget is massively on infrastructure under the Gati Shakti thing, where 16 ministries have been brought together. So from my perspective, India is poised to now unlock the potential it has for foreign investment because of the background, which is a pretty stable democracy, a good system of law. And we've also now over the years shown a good growth trajectory, and going forward also, it is estimated about 9.2% growth going forward. So I am very, very positive and very bullish for foreign investment in India and in New Zealand. Here, we are always there alongside INZBC and the High Commission to handhold and support anyone in their investment journey in India.
Thanks, Bhav. Jay, you were in the background somewhere there. Could you just give us a couple of lines on your overall thoughts before we open the panel up to discussion?
Thank you, Earl. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge His Excellency Muktesh Pardeshi and our partners, Invest India, Srivastava and the team, and also Make in India sponsors, and also Himanshu and everybody else. So, thank you so much. It was really fascinating to hear about your thoughts on India budget. Now, I just made some notes about a few points. I thought that was very, very refreshing and interesting to hear about the growth plan, the trajectory of how things looks like now and in the future for India, and an opportunity for us in New Zealand to sit here and to connect with our Indian partners. So INZBC will play a definite role in providing all the platforms that we do to facilitate trade, investment, and people-to-people connection. But just want to point out a few things that I was fascinated with was we talk about the 5 trillion economy, the size that I talked about, and also this investment in our data storage, which links back to the investment in fintech, which Himanshu was talking about. So I thought there's a clear synergy about where the growth is going, and the India being a spearhead in technology and human capital. I feel that is an area that we're definitely going to see huge growth. And the flip side of that is I can see the education, the investment in getting the foreign universities, attracting manufacturing, and helping the pharma companies to grow significantly, which I also feel that what India has delivered in the pandemic in the pharma space is absolutely respectful, and I feel that we've achieved significantly in that. And we have, INZBC has done some work along with the High Commission in this space, which we'll be working with High Commission to release some information on that. There'll be a pharma report coming out, and we will talk about this, which would be definitely a good point of contact or reference point for us, Invest India, INZBC, and all the partners to look at, engage, and make a use of. Finally, my take on this is budget is very practical, as Bhav said, futuristic, realistic, and achievable. I feel 9.2% growth as a chartered accountant and a conservative accountant would look at differently. But in this case, I would see this as achievable, and I support this right through. Thanks, Earl, to you.
Thank you so much, Jay, for those introductory comments. Now we've got a chance to dig into this, and we've got about 10 minutes still up our sleeve. And look, I'm going to perhaps start by just coming back to you, Jay. Digital currency and the development of that in India. Just tell us what that means and what it's likely to mean for businesses and for economies going forward. It's being talked about everywhere. Hey, I'm amongst those who don't know what the heck that means. So can you give us some insights? Because it is a feature of this budget.
Yes. Himanshu talked about the blockchain technology in his presentation. He talked about how secure. Blockchain is a technology which makes the digital currency very secure. And this is something that has got a bit of investment that has gone from the government in this space to go ahead and make that as an available currency, especially rupee form going forward. What that does is give people an alternative, give it an opportunity to look at where the government can support some of the initiatives from the foreign direct investments that could be helping in the infrastructure projects and investments in India. So it basically would mean that there would be much more support from someone like us to go out there in a simple terms. In your language, if I have to speak, the milk solids and the milk products that you will supply, there's an option to get some money in a different form instead of getting that in US dollars or in different currency.
Okay. Oh, well, Indian rupees would be a good start. Okay. Thanks, Jay. Now, I would just say for all of the audience online, if you wanted to ask a question, you just go to the chat function, which is at the bottom of your screen, and you can pop up a question there. Gary's waiting for those, and he will feed them back to us. But perhaps I could just go back to Sai and just ask her to explain some more about the role of the tier 2 and tier 3 cities of India. From my perspective, I go to a village, and it's like a small city in New Zealand anyway. But I think we all get it. But just in terms of the evolution of the market in India, it's got one of the world's highest migration rates in global history. I think about 10 million people are moving out of villages every year into the major cities. What does India look like for investors over the next 5 and 10 years, just in terms of the landscape, the demographics, and where people are living and where the purchasing power is? So
yeah. Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Earl, for that question. As soon as you asked that question, a very wise saying comes to my head. The mark of a very developed nation is not when everybody travels by car, it is when everybody travels by the public transportation. So I think India is kind of gearing towards that. The development, the across the length and breadth of the country, especially this budget that we have announced now, lays enormous emphasis on improving the infrastructure that's going to stay with us for the next few decades. That is number one, not just in the metros, but across the urban and rural and the suburban areas as well. Today, for opportunities, there is a trend where not the rural regions come to the cities and metros, but where the opportunities go to the rural areas, to the suburban areas. If I have to give you a small indication of how much the technology has kind of penetrated, we are talking about, if I have to give you a snapshot of the kind of sectoral growth in India, every minute, 60,000 digital payments, every single minute, 60,000 digital payments are being processed in India. With respect to manufacturing, every minute, 50 vehicles are being manufactured in India. And all these vehicles, manufacturing plant owners are no more having their plants in the city or outskirts of the city. They are well 2 hours and 3 hours away from the most important metro of that particular state. This is an indication of the fact they are able to get good quality labor and good quality land and infrastructure a little bit into the states as well. This just talks about the development of my tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. We are talking about 750 new social media accounts being created in India every single second, every single minute. For every 60 seconds, 750 new people are stepping onto the social media. So that is the kind of exposure and the growth India is having across all the tier cities.
Very, very valid, and I think we're all experiencing that distance doesn't matter anymore. We're all connected, just like having you in India and we're talking here. That's an interesting point, and it's one that I think isn't in the current narrative, that actually the massive migration that everybody in the World Bank and everyone else will be worried about from rural to urban may actually reverse. I think that's a well-made point, and one that we should look out for.
Yes, reverse migration from outside of India into India, and people being quite comfortable where they are and not having the urge to move to the cities and metros. The trend has started very much, and reverse migration has been happening in India for the last few years. I am a very classic example. When you read about my CV, I lived abroad for 10 years. I went in search of opportunity, and I came back to India just for the same reason, in search of the opportunity, because the opportunities are here for me today.
Very, very positive. Well, while we're talking about the rural areas of India, maybe Himanshu, you could just comment. Look, India is the Garden of Eden. There's no question. Very few places can grow more protein and vegetable nutrition than India. So the initiatives taken to transform ag into a tech-led sector within that are beginning in the budget, and I just noted that there was 20,000 crore rupee, which is billions, being directed at agriculture generally. It might not all be for ag tech, but just tell us how you see this evolving over the next few years, and in particular, what will the agricultural landscape look like in your mind in a decade's time from now?
Okay, Earl, actually, since thank you very much for the question. Coming from you, who's well experienced on the Indian, domestic front, but still, I will try my best. I can see that a lot of people are now getting very conscious about the kind of food they eat, especially during pandemic. There are a lot of startups in this domain. I mean, the new online infrastructure enables you to order food or vegetables and get delivered to your doorsteps in 10 minutes, half an hour maximum. So there is a lot of, I would say during pandemic, there was a lot of disruption in this sector, and we face challenge, not in specifically in terms of agriculture, but I would say the new age agriculture is all about consciousness about the production, the delivery, and the last mile access, so that B2C can be facilitated, waste can be minimized, and if required, processing happens as and when possible. So I see a lot of initiative, not just in this budget. If you read past several budget statements, there were a lot of allocations. New measures have been announced. Farmers are going to get support, even the skilling from the government. The government is going to use high-end technologies such as drone to kind of give them an overview or a visual of how how it really looks in terms of the final output, and to kind of warn them against any risk that they have. So it's all scientific. Being an accountant, I may have limitation in expressing in the same terminology, but as I read the documents and as I see the agro startups, I'm pretty much confident that not only we are going to sustain our own population, but we are going to do better in terms of increasing the exports. There were several statements in the budget which cannot be read standalone. For example, one crop, one station is again a good initiative by the government to ensure that whatever a certain village or certain community can take ownership of certain product, and then the government takes responsibility to help it market. So it's a whole process. And as a quick concluding remark on this point, I can say that the government has said that they are going to bring a national master plan, or Gati Shakti. It's just not a kind of a slogan. It means momentum, creating a momentum. Any sector that the government has taken up, they're trying to create a momentum, which in my simple understanding means a process of movement, which if it is kind of put into place, will automatically churn it by itself, and this less likely to stop. So I think that all these initiatives are going to add to the momentum, and we're going to maybe address a more different kind of challenges in future, and be a very strong nations, as the finance minister also has stated.
Well, look, thanks for those comments, and look, none of us can see the future, but there's definitely the energy going in behind ag sector, food, and in fact all sectors. For those of you in the audience that aren't familiar, as our speakers are, with Hindi, my understanding that Gati Shakti means speed and power. I think I hope my advisors were right on that matter, but which just in case anyone didn't know, we've had a question which I'm perhaps going to leave with you too, to start off with anyway, Himanshu. And this comes from Pushpa Wood, who's asking, it's all very well having a digital currency environment, but what about the investment in the education, the knowledge, the background that ordinary everyday people need to have in order to utilize that safely and effectively, remove the risks from it, which scare everybody. And no question, India's got one of the biggest potentials, but only if people can use these things. Hey, just what's your observation of that? Does it going to go hand in hand?
So in terms of education, though I already covered it in my slide, but I can say that the initiative of recognizing the fact that we need to skill, reskill, and upskill our people, and we need to also take care of the marginalized or rather remote areas where for any reason, due to mobility or even the lockdown that we had seen, every person is able to kind of take initiative to self-learn. So of course, the government provides free education, but this is beyond. We are really talking about high quality contents delivered through digital university, through the aid of digital teachers. So this is the first time, that this has been put on a forum like this. There are talks as to how education can be complemented by way of technology. There are several unicorns in India now purely running on educational model, and I think the government respects it, and they want to also add the social flavor, rather responsibility, kind of to the whole initiative, that how we can actually educate our people much better. There is also a need to expose our people to foreign universities, or let's say high-end courses, which probably need some handholding in India. So the government has even allowed IFSCs to host foreign universities for various courses. So I think and I have a whole slide on it, but rather stopping because of the time, I can only say that if you really read the whole budget as one piece, as one story, or as you look at it as a movie, you can actually understand the whole scenario much better. You can digest it, and then, as I think Jay also mentioned, and Bhav also stated, that there is a high level of interlinking between each sunrise sector or focus sector that the government has trying to kind of promote. You talk about edtech, you have fintech, you have public spending, you have infrastructure catering to that. So I would say it's the reason that it was not a long speech, because it was very, very focused, very high content and measurable. So I think that's a spirit that we need to also follow for the next 25 years to report much better things, when India is at that level. Also, last fact is, for example, India has also committed that by 2070 will be net zero carbon emission.
Right.
So they have been, simultaneously we need to work backward. We are going to be 100 after 25 years, and after 25 we're going to be net zero carbon emission country. So the focus has totally shifted now. The game has changed, and all of us who have been part and parcel of the story are realizing this is visible on the ground.
Okay, thanks, Himanshu. I'm just wondered if I could grab Bhav to perhaps add to that or comments to that issue. Have you got any observations? You're very experienced with businesses that work only if people can use them. So
yes, thanks, Earl. I just wanted to put in Pushpa's question. What I think was more about are the customers fully equipped and protected against financial risks like anti-money laundering and scams? So she had a very pointed question on that. And that's very important, because when from a foreign jurisdiction, you want to go and do business in another jurisdiction, you really want to know that how robust is the system and how well protected is that against financial risks like anti-money laundering and scams. So I would like to put in here that the Indian financial system, or the Indian banking system, on which the whole investment and financial system is based on, is I would use the word that it's best in class, or I would even say it's one of the best in the world. I personally do business in a lot of different jurisdictions, and that includes New Zealand and India. And through this forum, I can say that the security of the Indian financial system, the banking and the transactional and all others associated, which also includes the trading things like the the National Stock Exchange and the Bombay Stock Exchange, plus all the banking. Its foundation is so well laid and is so robust and secure. because India, about 90-95% of the population has been biometrically, logged through the Aadhaar card, and through Aadhaar card, everything is linked. And then you have India led the world, and if some of you would remember, but people in New Zealand probably don't know, they came up with the term KYC about 8 to 10 years ago. New Zealand is rolling that in the last 12 months or so. So India came up with that concept of KYC, which is know your customer. And so that way, the chances of any financial fraud are, greatly reduced. And through the banking system, another thing is the RTGS system in India, which is the real-time gross settlement system, where you can transfer money very, very securely between accounts. So on that point, I can very confidently say that the Indian banking and financial system is as good as any other system or platform in the world. Actually, it's leading the world. A lot of New Zealand banks are also run on the Indian systems provided by Infosys and other platforms. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhav. That's encouraging and critical. As chair, I'm going to have to put my hand up and say I've completely failed you all because we've run over by 10 minutes already.
10 minutes.
And when that happens, it's never the speaker's fault. It's always the responsibility of the chair. But because I'm already in trouble, I'm going to allow this to run for just another 5 minutes, and we will pull the plug in 6:15. And look, it's largely because these are very engaging discussions. We don't get the opportunity to do this all the time. And Gary, keep an eye on questions. But while you're looking there, I've got a question for Sai, and that's really around the reforms in the real estate sector. When I first got involved in India a bit over a decade ago, look, it was all about real estate. It was all about capital gains, and it was all about, that's where the wealth is. Things have changed dramatically. But I just wondered if you could give us your take on how the reforms, which have been very welcome in the real estate sector, are having on the Indian economy generally.
Going to be honest, I may not be the right person to answer this in full depth, but I am going to definitely try. Where some of my observations in the budget on the real estate front is that I always keep going back to telling you how infrastructurally India is developing, and this budget really focuses on that. One of the highlights and focus from this budget is to complete about 80 lakh houses are expected to be completed in about 24 months. By end of 2023, we are looking at developing. So one part is India is trying to develop this, but if you look at the flip side, that means that much of opportunity is available for the real estate investments to come in to the real estate space as well. The affordable housing projects, about 48,000 crores will be allocated under a very special scheme. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana scheme is the specific name of the scheme, where that much amount of money is going to be invested into the real estate development as well. The future cities, smart cities, and the National Ropeways Development Program. There are multiple programs that have been designed and engineered to improve the real estate sector and the infrastructural development that kind of go hand in hand for India as well. So while we talk about the reforms under the budgets and the things that we hope to do, the flip side is what is that the investor has in this. So all these reforms are being backed by a lot of other measures that the government is doing to kind of reduce time in obtaining the approvals, licenses, permits, which is holding up the development and it's holding back what I would say the red carpet for the investors. The government is very cognizant of that. We understand time is money, time value of money. We appreciate that we are trying to do as much as the government. Every passing budget, we are trying to do what best we can to make it to run a lot of reforms in a privatized way, if I can just put it candidly. In the private sector, we understand time is money. So what can we do constantly to improve the time taken to improve the real estate sector as well?
Okay, look, I'm going to cut that off there.
Yes.
Who was that?
Can I? That's Gary here. Can I quickly put one question which has come from a member, and then we can close?
Yeah, please.
So that question is from our member Jonathan Manuel, who's from aviation. This question, I think maybe Sai can help answer this. He's asking that is there a separate channel for OCI, overseas citizens of India, to invest in India and to make things easily? Personally, he's been struggling to get to just register a company in India right now. Also, is there anything for the aviation training sector? And he's asking if he can help get some help to set up a flight school in India.
Now we'll direct that to
maybe Sai, if you can.
Sure. Jonathan, thank you very much for that question. So a lot of the investments are 100% automatic route as well. Recently in the defense and aviation space as well, the route for investments has been increased tremendously. That is number one. Number two, I am quite sorry to hear that you have been struggling to set up a flight school here in India. So it would be more of, come under the startup space where you want to start up something here and see rather than more of an industry investment or a manufacturing investment. So I will leave my email address here. I will be very happy to connect you with my defense and aviation team, number one, to take you through the policies and the hand-holding support that we will be able to provide you, number one. And also, I would like to connect you to my startup team as well. That will help you understand the the different benefits you may be able to utilize under the Startup India scheme as well.
Right, thanks. So the good thing about a session like this is we get some names of people to contact, and I hope you'll be connected with Jonathan. I am going to need to bring the event to a close, and I'm going to very quickly ask Jay Changlani if he could just offer the speakers a vote of thanks on our behalf.
Thank you, Earl. Okay, just quickly, vote of thanks. Indian High Commissioner, His Excellency Mr. Muktesh Pardeshi and his team, thank you so much. Invest India, Sudha and our team. Make in India our sponsor for today's event. Our strategic partners, HCL and Ola. And also our new associate partner, Jonathan Manuel from NZ Aviation Academy. We'd like to acknowledge you as well today. And finally, thank you very much. All of us try our best to connect and grow and assist each other. So thank you very much for helping us in this journey. Thank you.
All right. Well, look, that brings us to a conclusion. Can I just finish by again thanking you, Namaste, Rattray, and all the very best to you all. Thank you.
Thank you.